Hello, Ralph. Gary Kuhn, Renee Kuhn, and Chris McCune here with you again today after we've made a new discovery and something became evident last week. What that is that we got the final order and opinion from the appellate court. And on that final order and opinion, there was a small box that was checked on page 1, which we will be sending to you, that shows that there is no cost reimbursement. In other words, when we took that to the appellate court and had to spend $28,000 in order to defend her right to have that mileage benefit and not be isolated from family and friends when receiving a benefit, when we knew that was wrong from the very beginning, and I mean before we even had a pre-conference call, we knew what they were doing was wrong. We had to take it all this way for 3 years, spend $28,000, take all of that time, and there is no cost reimbursement. In most instances, if you go up against someone and they are found to be wrong and you spent money on attorney's fees, those are reimbursed, not with the state of Oregon DHS. They have immunity from that. What that means is they can do wrong. They can do basically what they choose, how they choose, and remove things from people even when they should never have gone to hearing, taking it all the way to the appellate court, and at the end they just have a sense of indifference. Didn't matter, let's move on. We don't believe that's the way this state should be operated, nor how the federal government should oversee the way in which people who are receiving benefits have the right to receive those benefits and not have to be put through what we've been put through these past 3 years.
And Ralph, we had never taken anyone to hearing prior to the case against Susan Larson and the illegal removal of her mileage benefit based on false language in her plan in 2014. When we requested on February 24th, 2014, a hearing if she did not remove those false statements and reinstate her mileage benefit, we didn't even know what we were talking about. We just knew we had to take a stand. And so we just flew by the seat of our pants, and every paperwork that came in the mail, we filled it out and got ready for our pre-hearing conference and did what we were supposed to do. We were made aware in that paperwork that either party at any time could withdraw from the proceeding. That was never an option for us. We knew exactly what had been done to our daughter and why and how, and that it was not right. And so there was no chance that we would ever back down. But for the fact that Marion County chose to continue on with a hearing where the issue of mileage benefit being given to an individual to visit their family, community, and friends was in question was just irrational. Instead of withdrawing and getting to the point where we are now, where 3 years later we can release publicly all of the evidence that Marion County gave us in those 5.5 hours of hearing, is just unbelievable. Instead of withdrawing, Marion County chose the path of retribution, retaliation, institutional arrogance, stupidity, and incompetence, and 3 appellate judges agree with those facts.
When we go back and think back on that hearing, we strongly believe that 100% of Charisma's miles will be given back in the remanded hearing. DHS may say, well, they're not going to get those miles back, the additional ones. We believe we will. And the reason we believe we will in that remanded hearing is we stand true to where we did day 1 with the ALJ in the first hearing. And that is that those transportation trips, the benefit that was expended for our daughter, were all for her benefit. If you see her sitting here, you can see she's lying on her bed. She's not going out by herself. She's not seeing the community. She's not going shopping on her own. It's impossible. So when she went to visit someone, she was visiting them and getting a benefit. When she went shopping, she was receiving a benefit. When she got to go out and attend a festival or an event, she was benefiting. She needs that social benefit that the appellate court has said she has the right to, and which they tried to deny. So we will take to our remanded hearing, which we are going to be forced into going into because the appellate judges have sent it back to the ALJ, and we will document mile for mile what each trip entailed and how it benefited her and how it was of social benefit to her. That is upcoming. It will match in and align with her ISP goals. It will prove that she has the right to access family and friends, and it will prove to that new ALJ who's assigned to that hearing that what we said 3 years ago stands and holds true today.
And Ralph, the whole reason for these videos is the fact that the caseworker, Susan Larson, and her supervisor, Donalisa Sadler, conspired and colluded in order to remove illegally our daughter's mileage benefit from her. A benefit that never should have been touched in the first place. These videos and the evidence that we have uncovered over a 3-year period are provided to you because we have held inside for 3 years what Susan Larson and Donalisa Sadler did to our daughter. And we filed 3 formal complaints, one against the caseworker, the supervisor, and Heather Bell, the hearing representative, Chellis Kronberg, Rod Calkins, the Marion County Health Director, and the Governor's Advocacy Office received full binder complaints of each one of those. And nothing was done to those people. Those people were not fired, and they were not reprimanded to our knowledge. And even when, right after the hearing where we did make it public to Marion County that the caseworker had perjured herself on the witness stand and stated that she's had many conversations with our daughter over the years when our daughter is nonverbal. We went nuts at that point and did release that information. We did not make the audio public other than to the people that received the complaint binders. But even then, Ralph, nothing was done to these people, and it's just unthinkable.
We spent time, energy, and money and suffered for no reason whatsoever. And when I say that, no reason whatsoever, is the truth of what the appellates determined, that it was erroneous what the ALJ had to write in his order. And it was absurd from the day that we first heard that we were going to have a pre-conference hearing, that they did not stop at that point but continued forward. Going after us, and as Jennifer Stuckey said, appearing perhaps to be retaliatory till strong advocates. They thought that they had won for 3 years, Ralph, until the 15th of February, and that win was easily dismissed by the appellate court.
And Marion County and the DOJ cannot say that the ALJ ruled in a way that they did not intend, because that's absolutely false. And we provided some of that information to you and justification to you in a previous email. But in the 3 years, Ralph, no one at Marion County, after the ALJ made a ruling that supposedly they didn't intend to happen and weren't happy about, no one once came to us and said, we don't feel comfortable with that ruling, which is not what we had originally intended, and so we want to go ahead and give you a percentage of those miles to visit your family, or give you all of the miles to visit family. No one breathed a word, Ralph. They had a ton of fun for 3 years over that ruling. Everybody was ecstatic and joyful and was very proud of themselves during that time.
In fact, Ralph, DHS is out of control in the state. It's been proven in this particular instance. It was proven when in 2016 2 officials had to be terminated due to problems with the foster care system, and then the discovery of what had taken place and how children had been abused. DHS has become so large that they really, to us, resemble, if you will, an analogy, a junkyard dog. They're like that dog at the junkyard that it will attack and continue to attack until either it kills someone or it's killed. In this instance, no one was killed in our instance, but the appellate judges shut that junkyard dog down in this particular case. Did the rest of the junkyard dogs stop? I don't know. I don't believe so from the history of that organization, but they continue to come at you even when there's no cause.
And Ralph, unless the federal government and the Surma Vima team puts penalties and fines against the state who does such a thing, to rule and to initiate a hearing and not withdraw when the word family is even included at all in that hearing request and their evidence binder, where they cut and pecked and chosen the miles off of our 6 month of mileage logs as to which family visit wasn't appropriate, and this family visit and that outing in the community, without having any justification whatsoever. We are begging you, Ralph, to institute and implement fines and penalties against the state that acts the way that they do, all the way up to the appellate court, who has to rule for the family, because the family isn't good enough. They're what they say in their justification, and 5.5 hours in a hearing of begging and pleading everybody to understand how those miles were used. No one cared, no one listened. It was all collusion. It was all conspiring against the family. It didn't matter what I said. And in the end, in my closing statement, which I'm going to send you the audio to this week, Ralph, you will hear that what I said in my closing statement and in the 5.5 hours was exactly what the appellate court ruled in the way of Charisma's usage of her mileage benefit.
The same culture and mentality that did that 3 years ago, Ralph, it's not changed. Those people are still there, other than there's been some resignations for whatever reason at the county. But Heather Bell, the hearing officer, continues to have the right to go to hearing with people, even as incompetent as she proved herself to be. Her supervisor, Carol Mauser, proves that and has allowed her to remain in that job. It continues on. The entire culture of that organization is so entrenched that they have that belief that they can do those kinds of things, and until someone stands up like us and defends our daughters' rights, it's not known. And until someone communicates with you, perhaps at your level, it's not known. So we're hoping more people communicate with you, that you understand what's going on here in the state of Oregon and have the ability to start taking action against them in whatever manner and form is appropriate to get them back in control, to get them back following the rules, to get them back allowing families to not suffer, but to be given the opportunity to thrive and to flourish and to be able to survive sometimes that which is difficult to survive. We still, to date, Ralph, have not heard back from anyone at DHS regarding our request for a hearing due to her isolation and the 50-hour cap that isolates her to her home. We did get a brief email from the hearings officers that said, we'll be in touch, but to date we have not had anything as far as a hearing set, and we're starting to wonder why the delay.
Yes, Ralph, and so if there's anything that you can do to force these people to get that hearing date to us immediately, we would appreciate it. We want to formally advise you and Marion County at this time that we are exercising our right to refuse a pre-hearing conference call. That's absolutely unnecessary. No family in history has ever documented our daughter's need for her 50-hour cap exception based on the unique complex need criteria. We have done that via videos, via letters to the DOJ. We have done emails to Chellis Kronberg for nearly 1 year. There is no need for a pre-conference telephone hearing. So we are refusing that at this point. All we need now is our date to go to hearing. And Ralph, what I'm going to be sending you this week, there'll be a couple of things, but one thing you're going to want to look for is our actual formal complaint that we sent to Chellis Kronberg, Rod Calkins, and the Governor's Advocacy Office in 2014 against the caseworker, Susan Larson. You are in receipt of the formal complaint against the supervisor, where she intentionally and knowingly avoided 5 red flags where our family needed support, intervention, and assistance, and she denied that support to us. And so next is coming the actual complaint that no one seemed to care about against Susan Larson.
Ralph, everyone knows through history what happens when someone acts unethically, immorally, illegally, and are not held to a higher standard. They continue to do that same act from which they were doing. It's a burglar stealing from you. If you leave your door open and don't call the police, there's no repercussions, there's no chance of being caught, no chance of being in prison. They will continue to the end because they're benefiting. When they benefit and others suffer, that is the result of continued arrogance and continuation of the manner and form in which they've operated in the past. We're begging you to find a way to stop that continuation and put an end and a stop to the DHS's practices, policies, and procedures when they hurt families.
And Ralph, just because there might not be that many complaints filed with the Governor's Advocacy Office or with the health director or anyone, does not mean that corruption and disrespect and illegal things are not happening. for the Medicaid recipients and their caregivers. That couldn't be further from the truth. So many families that I have spoken to, they're scared to complain. They don't have the time to complain. They don't know where to begin to complain. They fear retribution. They fear their child will be taken from them. I've been told that more than once. They fear retaliation and a reduction in services. Ralph, no family in history possibly has ever done this for you. Created videos, video pleas. And so, Ralph, you now have the evidence that you need to take the steps you know to take against the state of Oregon. And in a way, Ralph, the federal government will now be held accountable because you have been given the evidence. We have dropped it on your desk. We have placed it right in your heart. And if you turn your backs on families like us and do nothing, then in a way, Ralph, the federal government will be to blame. And there will be no one for families to go to for help.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ralph.